Hello, welcome to episode number 15 of the On the Knuckle podcast. I'm Gaz Vestman Vogan, and next to me here in Lavinio, Mr. Adam Beggsy, how's it going?
It is going okay today.
Only okay. I had the best powder day I've ever had in my entire lifetime, which isn't saying a lot from a dry soap rider, and it is only okay.
I'm spent. It was an absolute cracker today. Like, we scored, best day of your life, definitely the best day of my season. And there was some, just not even some turns. There was turns all day from start to finish. I think we just looked at it. We rode over 50 kilometers. We rode 20 odd runs, and every time we came down to come and record this, we just kept doing another lap because there was no one around and there was more power and more face shots. It's now 9 o'clock at night here because we rode power till we had to go to our meeting this afternoon.
Yeah, our little 2-hour shred because it snowed overnight and they'd moved qualies from today to yesterday here at the Olympics turned into a 10 till 3:30 kind of sessions, which kind of shows how worth it is. And I would highly recommend booking a trip to go snowboard in the same resort as the Winter Olympics, because don't buy tickets for the events, just watch on a big screen somewhere, but no one else seems to want to ride there.
Yeah.
Accommodation does cost a fortune. That is the only downside. And so we've had a wicked day. We're delayed recording all these episodes because today we're going to talk about the Laax Open Slopestyle, which has been one of my favorite events of the season, and it's kind of my favorite event of every season. But yeah, we got a bit busy at the Olympics and fortunately had a day off. So we're going to squeeze this one in before we go into Slopestyle finals, and then we're finished. So I guess first way we've been starting all the pod episodes recently, Olympic Excitometer. How you doing? Except for all right and spent. Where's your Olympic bit at?
It's still at a 9 to 9.5, 10. Like, it's up in that excellent range. It's awesome. Everything's good vibe. Everyone's pumped. The riding's good. Competitions are good. I'm excited still.
Yeah, and we are on minimal death threats still, so that is always progressive. I had one from a former judge, but I think that's more personal than anything actually related to the Olympics. But I think my Olympic excitometer is kind of coming down a little bit. I think I'm down to about a 7. It's been a long trip. It's been awesome to be out of the game. Some good events. Hell of a half-pipe final, which we'll talk about soon. But yeah, should we get into the Laax Open?
Let's do it.
Cool. So Laax Open, as we mentioned in the half-pipe pod, one of the most premium events of the season. Full branding, full production. You really feel like you're at an event. And the slopestyle is an awesome slopestyle because they always seem to put on a bit of an interesting course. And we include semi-finals into the mix on the men's side of things. So we'll go through all the women's qualies and the finals, and then the men's qualies, semis, and finals. Do you want to talk us through the course?
Yeah, like you said, Laax Open is one of the big ones. It feels like a bigger event. The entry into the course, the branding, everything about it's just good. It's one of the big ones. It's sort of continued on from the old European Open, and it's still one of the big ones. So this one, like you said, it's always got something creative or different. It's not your stock slopestyle course. This one started off with 2 rails, then into 3 jumps, and finishing with a butter jump that had transitions on the side. So the end way, there was almost four air features, but yeah, that transition / air to butter jump was just something different and cool. So I'll let you give us a lowdown on the rails.
Yeah, so rails at the top, we had it was a very mirrored setup left and right. We kind of had flat rail, then transfer into a flat elbow down rail. So there's a couple of different transfer lines there as to whether you just went flat to down or just hit the down, etc. And then the middle was this weird kind of doghouse, then ball bonk to down rail. So, and that's one of my favorite things about these kind of rail sections is the fact that you stand there on day one of training and watching section 1 and you watch the best riders in the world try to figure out how best to use this individual section. So you get to see loads of different stuff. And it's kind of the balance as to how well you can use the section, but still how difficult a trick can you put down on that section consistently.
Totally. And from memory, I think it was Lion and Dusty that were sort of kind of doing some cool stuff with that ball and the doghouse there compared to everyone else on that, like trying to really play with it and work it out, like you say.
really actually use the course rather than just treat it like another rail section. So that was section 1. On section 2 was your very classic shootout tube on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side was what is normally a donkey dick rail, a down flat, but this time was a flat up. So it's a bit more of an air rail section because it really prompted higher rotations out of it. And that little donkey kick at the end just threw you up into the air. So again, interesting tricks seen on there, but made it into a bit more of an air course than a rail course, which balanced out quite nicely, having done an Aspen course the week before, which was more rails heavy. So,
yeah, totally. And then with this one, we originally thought it was going to be 4 airs. So we'd gone in sort of saying we want to see 4 different directions on the jump. But that quickly changed once we watched that first day of training and how people were figuring out that bottom one. And we basically went into the riders and judges meeting and said to them that we'd rather see that feature used creatively with the transition, the gaps, the butters and Miller flips, and have the 4 directions throughout the entire course rather than have 4 jumps and just see people turn that into an air feature and not use it as it was intended.
yeah, because we didn't want the variety criteria to be a restrictive criteria, which I think made a lot of sense because otherwise you'd have had people just doing like some switch backside 5 over it just to have a switch backside trick.
Yeah, totally.
So into women's qualifications at the Laax Open. We'll start with those that didn't quite make the cut. Second one outside of a finals qualification spot was Miyabi Onitsuka
From Japan. And her run was front blunt 2 into 50-50 front 3, front 7 melon, back 5 melon, cab 7 Indy into a switchback 1 to front 3 over the butted feature.
And it was one of those, and we saw this from quite a few of the women as they struggle for speed and kind of figuring out that one. A lot of them kind of use it almost like a step up, step down sort of jump. So my kind of notes on that one was it was no butter between this. It was a blatant switchback 1 into a 360 without any kind of nose or tail pressure. And then the bigger kind of issues that kept her out of finals was she was off early on the front blunt 2 and then off very slightly early on the 50 front 3. So it's kind of just drifting a little bit. So that was the kind of key executional points. And had the short grab on the front 7. Amplitude, very average in stock all the way through. So there wasn't any major standout points throughout the entire run, really. Just above her is
Ava Beer from New Zealand. She went front 50 to back 1 on the first, into switch board slide 2, cab 5 Indy on the first jump, front 7 melon, back 3 mute, and finishing with a front 1 butter to switch back 1. So she got the butter on that feature.
Yeah, actually had a really good press. So kind of looking at it executional wise, had a really strong grab on the cab 5, was locked into the first 2 rails and kind of took that harder rail section from section 1 and doing the full transfer rather than just the down. But it was kind of the short touch grab on the front 7 melon that held it down, and then trick difficulty with just the backside 3 on that final jump before the butter section, and then was missing the switch backside direction. So that came in quite a bit on the variety side of things, and we were seeing women's in that qualification with all 4 directions throughout the run, such as the last one into finals. And I feel like this is a name we've mentioned many times on the pod. If you had a bingo card, it's probably a dead cert she'll be mentioned because she's been pretty standout all season, and that's Ali Hickman from Australia.
Yeah. She went front blunt 2 on the first rail, into lip slide, tail tap to fakie, into a switchback 5 mute, a front 7 mute, then a back 5 Indy, and then a cab 1 to back 1 over the butter feature.
So yeah, so ticked off all the 4 directions on those 4 air features, even though it wasn't a requirement. It's really nice and locked on the front blunt 2. Execution throughout the run was good. Strong grabs on the front 7 and the back 5.
So it's usually seems to be the key with her at the moment is execution. So got her on the podium at Steamboat, and it's grabs are held, rails are locked in, and that seems to be what gets her through in those close calls and bubble decisions.
Exactly. So awesome from Ali Hickman. Her first ever Laax Open final. Let's get into finals. All right, so into women's finals. The first one off the podium was
Evelina Tucker from Finland. And I think this was her best result she's ever had in a slopestyle. It was really good riding from her that day. And she went front lip to fakie into switch front lip 2, cab 5 Indy, front 7 tail grab, into a back 7 melon, finishing with a front one butter to switch back one. So another one that got the butter there.
And she was wonderfully locked on the rails. I've got good lockdown on both sections 1 and 2, so made that look nice and easy. And quite cool to have like the mirrored front lip and switch front lip. Short grab on the cab 5 and the back 7, though, were kind of a little bit of the sticking points, and missing that fourth direction just as a bit of a note. Other than that, pretty stellar run, to be honest. Uh, they just kind of could have needed a bit more difficulty to get herself up onto the podium.
And that takes us to the podium. So in third place for that one, we had Anna Gasser from Austria, and it was good to see her back on the podium. She's been off with injuries and hasn't done a lot of competing this season, so it was good to have her back at this one and straight back up to the podium. So she went front lip to fakie, switch front lip 2, into switch back 5 stale, back 7 mute, front 5 indie, into a cab 1 butter, back 3.
Yeah, so very identical rails to what we saw from Evelina Tucker. I do say from my notes that first rail was very equal, as it were. Second rail, the lock was a little bit better from Evelina Tucker. But then Anna had the full variety in terms of having switch backside, front side, and cab on the remaining features. Strong grabs from all 3 jumps, to be honest, and then included the nose butter. Quite a nice nose butter on that final section. So execution, and it's not like she slipped off the rail early in section 2. It was just not quite as steezily locked in as it was from Evelina Tucker. So execution's there, variety's there, difficulties there as well with the cab 1 nose butter and the switch backside 5.
Like you say, it was, she got all 4 directions in the jumps, and then her execution was really good. She does grab really well on those lower rotations, so switch back 5 and back 7. The back 7's beautiful, so definitely helps.
And you might be wondering, if you've been listening to these runs, why are we only talking 7 or 5, 7, 7 or lower rotational jumps? And that's because the Laax jumps were a little bit smaller than we're used to on the World Cup Tour. For no major real reason. It was just that was the way they were shaped a little bit to keep it a bit flowier and a bit less spin to win who can huck and tuck the furthest.
Yeah, I think the jumps were built to be safe and smaller and ridden in all weather conditions, and it ended up they were quite small and safe. So the trick difficulty was down in that sense.
It was really interesting because the Laax Pro line previously has looked very terrifying. It's probably a good word because it is huge tables. Whereas this one, I think, whether it's because the Laax Open is usually affected by wind, but it's very much, they were kind of steppy up jumps that the knuckle was quite high. So coming up short, you weren't coming in with a huge impact.
This day, they were fighting with the wind, so that's probably the other reason they were sort of keeping rotations down.
Yeah, so just thought I'd slip that one into it. But that does put you on the podium for that 4th direction. So into 2nd place.
And that was Lily DeWanaway from the USA on what was her first podium. So what a better place to do it than in Laax. So
and we went to watch the podium ceremony for that one because it was kind of our last thing we got to in Laax. And I did notice the US team kind of huddled together, and one of the US, the assistant coaches or physios, was kind of demonstrating the procedure to open the champagne bottle on the podium and what to do to get the spray. So maybe, as we've, I think, mentioned before about Yas and his crew, it might be a good idea to incorporate that into the training program.
Yeah, and she went 50-50 board slide, 50-50 back 1, into switch back 5 mute, front 7 indie, her staple back 7 stale, and finishing with a straight air front flip nose grab.
Yeah, which was quite cool. It was almost like a straight air, tail comes down, nose comes down, pops straight into front flip. So quite almost a tail butter to front flip, but that sounds really weird when you put it that way. So above Anna, because she was a little bit more tech in sections 1 and 6, kind of having that inversion out of 6 and using the full feature with the transfer in section 1, which is really cool.
It's smart riding by her. I think she went down in run 1 and then just toned down the rails a little bit in run 2 and laced a clean run for 2nd place.
Yeah, and whilst was lacking a bit of the direction and variety side of things, did have really good amplitude that kind of outweighed that in the 5-7-7 combo. Stood out quite nicely. But a winner on the day was dominant, is probably the best way to describe it, and a very clear winner.
Yeah, totally. And that was Kokomo Murasi from Japan, who has been on one lately. She's won a lot this season, so yeah, 6 games, Laax. Yeah, so she started off with a 50-50 to lip slide, into a front blunt 2, then went front double cork 9 truck, cab dub 9 indie, back 10 mute, and a back 3 miller. So 9-9-10 combo where, the other girls are sort of 5s and 7s. So.
Yeah, and that's probably kind of the really obvious reason why she was up there in first place. But like for any X reasons, the amplitude was king. And then looking from a variety side of things, First two rail tricks, she at least did one kind of facing down the hill with the 50 to front lip, and the second one facing up the hill with front blunt too. So tiny part of the criteria, but just something I noted in my steno before she then went into this killer jump combo, which kind of blew things out of the water.
Yeah.
So yeah, congrats, Kokomo.
Yeah. Awesome.
Mm.
Yeah. Epic effort from her. Like, it's good to see such a big run in those conditions.
Yeah, they were really tough conditions for sure. And must be a nice confidence boost to come out of the last World Cup before the Olympics in first place and like a clear first as well.
Yeah.
And then obviously topped it in X Games.
Yeah.
Into men's qualifications. So this was kind of the start of 3 phases of competition: qualies, semis, and finals. And we got to do our least favorite competition format to start things off.
Yeah, double up. And I think we spoke about the aggressive schedule in the pipe episode, but yeah, Laax, we were just either at pipe or slope or qualies or semis. And I mean, at least it got its own day. And like we said, we got to have a semis in this.
Yeah, and I think when we get to semis, it's harder to whinge about double up because we're taking the top 12 through from each heat of 30 rather than the top 6 or top 8, etc. So we didn't moan too much about this one as long as semis happened. All right, so into the first one out in heat 1, which was young Brooklyn DePriest from the USA, who's been pretty standout this season. Did front lip to lip slide to fakie on the first set of rails, then cab 2-4, cab 10, switchback 12, back 14, and a frontside Miller 3.
Yeah, and on that one, it was sort of came down a lot to the cab 10 Stalmasky, where we went back to the replay on that one and it sort of reached through and just didn't get the grabs.
Yeah, it was almost like one finger was reaching to tickle it, and it wasn't a grab. So
Yeah.
actually, on my notes, it went down as no grab.
Yeah.
Because I was harsh on the day, but probably correct on the day. Other than that, it was just a bit lower difficulty on the rails. We saw rotations in and out of that top section with the transfer included as well. And the athlete that made it in heat 1 had some of that as well. So yeah, so last one in from Czechia, Cooper Hones, when cab 150 to back 2 transfer to board slide, and then a front one in switchback rodeo 5 out of rail 2, front and Indy, back rodeo 9 tail, and then it's cab 12 gorilla into frontside Miller 3. Do you want to take us through any notes that kind of kept him in the last spot into semis?
Yeah, I think with that one, it was a little executional instability on the first rail. Like, he was slightly early off. The front 10 Indy was awesome. The grab was really good on that one. The grab was also good on the back roadie, and then same with the cab 12 gorilla. So it was just, yeah, I think for the rest of that run, really good execution.
Yeah, tech diff was obviously up there. If you compare those first 2 rail tricks, cab 150, back 2 transfer to board slide against lip to fakie, easily, even with a little off very slightly early from Kuba, still would go to him. And then cab 2-4 versus a front 1 switchback rodeo 5 would go to the front 1 switchback rodeo 5. So yeah, execution, trick difficulty, and variety as well, having the rodeo axis as well as an inverted trick off the rails.
Yeah, I think we had him winning sort of 4-2 because Brooklyn's switchback 12 had a little bit of knee hook on it too. So I think when it was a count back, it was just the cleanliness of the back 9 rodeo.
So a few little points that separated the two of them. Should we get into heat 2?
Yeah, we should.
Sweet.
And first one out was
Benedict Gjerdalen from Norway. Was one of the ones that took a creative line through section 1. So went wall ride over the doghouse, then into back nose pretz 2 on the outside rails. The cab 2-4 off on the second section, into cab double 12, back double 10, front 14, and then a front 1 nose butter to 5 out. The only downside was he was off early on the cab 2-4 in section 2, had a bit of an edge, and that was kind of the key instability that kept him outside of semifinals, really. And he was missing the switch backside direction. Variety and execution, kind of the sticking points. Did want to reward the creative use, of course, in that top section.
Yeah. And these ones were really close. Even though the bubble was extended, taking 24 through to semis, it was still very tight around there. And being double up, it was, yeah.
Tough.
High pressure.
Yeah. And you often kind of get, and there was ones, it's always like almost little instability versus little instability down in that kind of 12th place spot.
And again, like we say, there's minor things, but they're both good runs. And just in for that one was Niek van der Velden from the Netherlands.
Yeah, so he did cab 2-2 on the second part of the rails, but what was really cool is rather than going straight to the last part of the elbow on those ones, actually did cab 2 into the elbow and then slid round. So just a very nice slide, very good locks all the way through. Then went front 2-4 on the second rail with a really nice lock, back 12 melon with a good grab, to cab 10 mute with a good grab, switch back 12 tail with a short grab, and then a frontside Miller 3 on the last feature. So basically, execution was on point all the way through and had all the directions. Was on point all the way through except for that shorter grab on the switchback 12. So,
And his rails were, he was really standing out those first few days in training. He toned it down a little bit for the comp, but some of the stuff we saw in training, we were expecting nines clubs on the rails when it came to section by sections.
yeah, he was on that donkey dick, was doing like back one in to cab 5 out. And the speed you had to carry through section 2 to get to the jumps, man, that was a very high paced back one in. And almost like as soon as he'd figured out that he was locked in, he was already at the kink and having to set off the cab 5. So yes, that was our full day of qualies with both heats. And then, as we mentioned, we go into men's semi-finals. All right, so we had 24 men in the mix, and we were taking 12 through. So quite a nice, kind of comfortable 50% success rate to get through to finals. Take us through, or who was second one out?
Ollie James Martin from the USA, and he went no slide tap to back blunt 2.
So using that little wall ride doghouse feature in the start of section 1.
Into a no slide roadie 6, pretzel 6 Indy, cab dub 14 mute, switchback 12 stale, back 14 tail into a front 1 switchback roadie 5 on the butter feature.
Yeah, so one of those runs that on paper sounds really good, but there was a little bit of an execution issue on the back 14. Was really nice all the way through the air, good grab, but then just kind of, I called it knuckle plus. Like didn't fully come square on the knuckle, but didn't quite make it to the sweet spot, and had a bit of like a hand drag sit. It was unclear as to whether he'd fully dragged his ass through the snow or just put a lot of weight through his hand. And I think we kind of gave him the benefit of the doubt that he sat down there in 14th place, but it was too much weight and too big of an instability to progress through to finals.
Yeah, and those knuckles were deceptively long there. When they rolled the jumps and brought them back and made them safer and like weatherproof, supposedly, they ended up with quite a deceptively long knuckle. I think they ended up painting the lines quite far down because, and we'd sort of definitely said we would be a little bit more forgiving with the conditions on the knuckles, because when you'd see them land when you're standing there and they'd land next to you, it was like they'd look like they would go to the sweet spot and it was still quite flat.
Yeah, exactly. So that takes us into our first one out of semis, missing a place in the finals when he was on the podium there last year. Who was it?
Noah Victor from Germany,
commonly referred to on the podcast as the Kidnap Kid. If you're unsure of the reference, please go back and listen to one of the episodes when we recapped last season.
Yeah, and he went front 2-2 into cab 2-4, cab double 9 underflip, bring back to switch, into switchback 12 melon, back 14 melon, and finishing with a quippler. So one of the people using that transition feature, he had to bring back in the run, he had the transition feature, and yeah, 4 different directions.
Yeah, so had the kind of the progressiveness in there and the variety, but again, similar to Ollie Martin, was the landing on the back 14. Wasn't as bad as we saw from Ollie Martin, but it was definitely a bit of a jet ski. Weight was a little bit too far back. And then just a bit of an easier rail combo at the top, just using that middle rail with the front 2-2 and then cab 2-4 on the second rail. So didn't have those standout rail tricks to carry him through into the big final, sadly. The one who did make it into final, just squeaked his way in, was Su Yiming. So his run was 50 transfer to board slide pretz 2 out, and then cab 1 back roadie 7 melon into back 12 melon hardway cab 7, which seems really low, but given the conditions, it was this is why he's down in 12th place. And then switchback 12 mute, and then on that last feature went like front side shifty kind of nose butter into backside rodeo 5, so kind of taking off from the early part of the takeoff, nose butter in the knuckle with the shifty in one way, and then very Eli-esque boosh bomb kind of style backside roadie 5 out the other way. So very progressive rail trick on section 2 with the rodeo out there, and very progressive and good use of course on the last section. So whilst he only had the cab 7 in there, the variety was in there, the execution was in there with all the grabs, etc., and the amplitude. So yeah.
And that was the 6th highest trick on that sort of, it was almost like a butter pretzel rodeo. So yeah, definitely helped push him in.
Cool. And then seeing as this is the first semi-finals we've done of the season, we've actually gone into the top 3 because it pulls into the plot later on. Who was in 3rd place?
Sam Vermaat. And he had a board slide to board slide 2 into back 1 cab 3 melon, switchback 12 tail grab, into front double 12 tail grab, into cab double 12, finishing with a backside miller flip bring back.
Yeah. So, it was a little like decent grabs on the jumps, a little bit Zeechy on the first rail, but was nicely locked at least. And had the execution, the amplitude, and the trick difficulty on the day. Progressive with the well, not really super progressive, but a little bit of variety with the bring back on the backside miller. And then it takes us into second place.
Who was Romain Allemand from France.
And we won't go through his run because
No.
we'll talk about that in finals just in a moment.
But he was looking good through training. He was looking good all week. He was definitely one of the ones to watch. He was good in qualies and backed it up here.
Yeah. And then a semi-finals winner, Yuto Kimura from Japan.
Yes, shaping up to be a good finals. Should we get straight into finals?
Yeah, let's go into finals. So the notable standout I had was the weather.
Yeah, and I guess I can go into that really.
Yeah, you are the weatherman of the pod.
We were looking like postponing. There was some weather around. There was a riders meeting at the top, and it was voted to run. Unfortunately for Sam Vermaat, who was sitting in third, who possibly would have liked that one to be cancelled because he was sitting in third place with a really decent run. You always want a podium, but I guess not by default. So he went all in, and unfortunately fell on run one on a front dub 12, and then fell on the same trick on the next feature in run 2. And
like he switched up his runs from like run 1 and run 2 to be able to do, I think, front double 12. He got an extra 270 out earlier on in the run, but did the front double 12 run 1 on section 3 on the first jump, fell, changed it around to try do it on the second jump in run 2, fell again. So, and it is a trick that he's had relatively on lock. It's kind of his style of spinning when he does the 12s or the 16s.
Yeah, 16s he's been nailing throughout this season really well, and like you say, it's had success for him. So this was super unfortunate. We only found out afterwards that it was between him and Jonas Hassler for the final Olympic spot, and the top of the quota spot there. And unfortunately, on this crash on the front double 12, he went down, and it put Jonas in. I mean, I guess Jonas rode well to secure a 6th spot, and he went 50-50 board slide front lip to fakie, switchback triple nose, cab double 16 tail into a back 14 nose, and he finished with a double crippler, making good use of that transition feature. So it wasn't just at Sandfeld. Jonas rode well as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was one of those unfortunate ones you find out in that whole points race, which we're always curious about after the fact.
Yeah, because we don't follow we understand the vague gist of the points and the quota spots for the Olympics, but we don't follow it too closely because it doesn't affect us in the slightest. But yeah, it is one of those sad things kind of the day after when everyone was getting ready to leave Laax, and you start hearing the names of like who's not able to go and who's out and who's in, etc. So it was a bit of a shame for Sam Vermaat, but I think this is obviously, it's not purely based off Laax. Laax was just the kind of the deciding factor. So I think Jonas has ridden well the past 2 seasons in that Olympic qualification period, so just been narrowly ahead at the right point, the right time. Yeah, he managed to make it the Olympics, and
in that is the only person that managed to make the Olympics for slopestyle, big air, and half pipe. So that was a pretty impressive feat.
Yeah. And his prize when he got to Livigno, food poisoning. But we'll talk about that in one of our Olympic episodes. Anyway, so I had a couple of notable standouts, more based around tricks than actual full runs from finals, but Nick van der Velden was, as we spoke about, was doing that back 1 cab 5 out on the high speed donkey dick, and then an absolutely gigantic double crippler on that last section. And as one of the tricks, we kind of expected to see it from Jonas Hassler because he is a pipe rider, can use transition really well. But Nick showed that it's not just pipe riders that can dominate that sort of thing. And it was huge. He even had time to open up and do a huge shifty at the end as well. So a notable standout for the trick. And then the other one, it was Dusty Henriksen with a nose press front 3 on section 2, which was really nice and legit, really good press. And then a front double rodeo 10 straight after that.
So in 4th place for that one was Øyvind Sjøkes from Norway.
Yeah.
He went switch front board into switchback lip.
And that was a very spectacular trick that we'd seen him do in training. Super tech to kind of pop into switch from board and then transfer back into switchback lip. Had it unlock really nicely in training, but I had poor lock down on this. So not quite slipping off early, but wasn't fully in that nice switchback.
Yeah, it was a really good trick, but it had a degree of risk associated with it. And unfortunately, in the finals, it didn't quite lock like some of the crackers we saw in training. And from that, he went into a cab, one front flip 180 off the
Tube.
thank you, into switchback Rody 12 nose, into a double toady 1080 Indy, into a back 12 melon, finishing with a cab 7 butter over the final feature.
Yeah, and it was kind of like, cab one into the nose, but then springs the 5 out the other way. So, really good run in terms of variety, kind of has all the directions, has different axes in terms of having the Todio and the Rodeo, and then the flat spin, and different takeoffs with the double Todio compared to the switchback Rodeo. So it was a very nicely, intelligently put together run. The only kind of sticking point was a little short on amplitude on the front double 10, which is kind of surprising because he used to lack the amplitude on the switchback Rodeo and the front Todio 10. You tend to get a better snap off your toes.
Yeah, you can definitely get pop, and we saw riders opting to it, again, because of those flatter jumps and the conditions. It was one they could get pop on.
Yeah, and that actually comes into play for our
third place.
Third place.
Which is exactly what I was thinking.
Oh, great minds think alike, eh?
And that went to Su Yiming from China. He went to boardside Pretz 2, into half cab Rody 7 stale, back double 12 mute, hardway cab 10 melon, switchback double 12 mute, and finished with a front one butter to back Rody India, which we spoke about before.
It was that kind of the topic we were just on in terms of the takeoff was the hardway cab 10. Call it hardway in shorthand just because it's easy to try. It was just cab 10 off the toes. And in training, we saw him trying the cab nose butter tricks that we've seen him learn and use in competitions since Christmas. And in conversation, it was very much like he'd switched to the toe side cab 10 to get the pop because he didn't have the pop from the nose butter takeoff instead. So yeah, had all 4 directions, good variety of axis with the kind of the off the toes and the doubles, and rodeos incorporated into the rails and the butter. So had the better executed section 1 in there as well compared to Oyvind. So other than that, pretty similar runs with the 12 combos. But yeah, so earned 3rd place at the Laax Open.
2nd place, we had Yuto Kimura from Japan, who went switchboard slide to switchboard slide Pretz 2, front 2 on, 6 off, cab 12 Indy, front 16 Indy, into switch dub backside Rodeo 9 melon, which is a bit of a mouthful, and finishing with a back 3 to back Rody 5 Indy. So yeah, the cab 12, front 16. So basically had all 4 rotations over those last 4 features again, all 4 primary directions. The front 16 in there, which is a cracker to have in the middle of your slopestyle run. Switchback dub Rody 9, so a bit of variety on the axis with that one too. So really kind of ticked off all the criteria in that run.
Exactly, yeah. And you said it better than I could have done myself. Yeah, just different axes on each trick. And then the back 3, back Rody 5 was quite cool. It's very kind of Marcus Cleveland-esque trick, which I think we expected Marcus to excel on that final feature, but he didn't get past the qualification stages.
Yeah, that trick was when we said we used the feature as it was intended. It was when you're watching it, it's like that's what we expected to see on that. So it was good.
Yeah, and then that takes us to our winner, and this is the first time he's ever won at the Laax Open, but a young chap that is coming well into strong form.
Yeah, he is definitely an up-and-comer slope rider. So that's Romain Alaman from France. He was a clear winner on this one on the day. He was 5 points ahead of 2nd place, which is huge in section by section.
Yeah, basically a point better on every single section, bar 1.
Yeah, which makes sense too, because he started off with a switchboard slide to front board to fakie, into a switchboard slide Pretz Rady 6 Indy, into a Brack 10 bring back to 9 melon, which was amazing, like just to see a trick, one of those bringbacks done to that level of execution in the middle of a slopestyle run. From that, he went into a switchback 12 nose, front dub 14 tail, finishing with a front flip nose grab hand drag bring back. So all these sections were super strong. He was the 2nd highest trick on the first rail, 1st highest trick on the 2nd rail, 2nd highest trick on the 3rd section, and then 1st highest on the front double 14 tail, and then 3rd highest on the final section. So he pretty much won every section.
Yeah, he either won or was at least a podium on each section.
Yeah.
Kind of springs in nicely if you're trying to put a good section by section run together. And then one of the kind of standouts from the composition side of things was the variety in terms of he had the full use of the top section with the switch up, had the pretzel flip out, had the pullback in there, and then good use of the final feature with the front flip hand drag. And that was very kind of Dusty style from the Laax Open a few years ago when Dusty came onto the scene in 2020 or 2021 when it was the front flip, hand drag, front flip out sort of thing, which was very cool to see.
Yeah, and there's a degree of risk in that too because we watched him either miss the hand drag because he obviously needed to get the counter rotation for the bring back whilst hand dragging. So yeah, that one had a degree of risk, and yeah, we watched him miss it a few times. So it was good to see him nail it in the finals.
And not the most riskiest of tricks. It's a trick that I can do, so it's low risk, but it's risk to the score because the way that it had been communicated to the riders and agreed within the community was that they needed to use that butter rather than just having it as a front flip overwards, which the score would have plummeted drastically.
That was a nines club for that one too. So essentially, you had a couple of nines clubs in there or high eights, which really, when you come out of that with a section score like that, and then I believe he won composition as well. So that's why it was so clear because he was a clear in both.
And he got a 86.7 kind of total score, which sounds low when you think the score's out of 100, but in section by section, anything close, 90 is not quite impossible because it's been done by Liam Briley at the World Champs last year, but very hard to get a 90 score in section by section. So kind of anything 80 plus is a pretty awesome run.
Yeah.
All right, so that was the Laax Open Slopestyle. Obviously, weather plays a part in it, but at least everything ran to pretty much as it was planned, which isn't always the case with Laax.
Which was really good because I think we spoke about in episodes coming up. We only had 2 Slopestyles this season, so there was and we knew snow was coming at both those venues. The weather was going to be there, so to actually get a comp away, get all those countries their qualification spots locked up, get the top 30 ready to go for the Olympics, and have 2 Slopestyles for the season pre-Olympics. So it was a good result.
Yeah, and it was just nice to get it all done and dusted. And the best part of the Laax Open, well, not the best part, one of my favorite parts of the Laax Open was they didn't delay it. We didn't have to push the travel day, and I could finally go home the day after finals, which was pretty sick. After 8 weeks on the road, it was much needed.
Yeah, that was a good break before we headed to Milan.
Yeah, and time travel does work, and we're now in Milan getting ready for Slopestyle finals tomorrow. Obviously, by the time this gets edited and put together and sent out, we will be long out of Livigno, I'm assuming. But hopefully you enjoyed the Olympics. If you've got a chance to watch them, please do tune in. I'm excited to get back home and watch all of the snowboarding events back because as a judge, you never really kind of get the full enjoyment of it. The events like the pipe was just mind blowing, but you don't get to sit back and just enjoy. You're always concentrating, thinking, panicking, and hoping for the best. All right, so that is it for this episode of On the Knuckle. Hopefully you enjoyed that little look back and contest review from the Laax Open. Our next episodes are going to be very Olympic focused. We're going to do an episode kind of per event, and because the Olympics breaks up men's and women's, that means we've got 6 episodes coming to you looking back at the Olympics, which we're very excited about. But please do follow us on Instagram. We're On the Knuckle. We try to put as many behind the scenes stuff up as we can. We're a little bit limited when we get to the big show in Milano as to the rules that are in place for the media. One of Beggsy's favorite things in life is to go out and find nice local coffee shops. So feel free to head to buymeacoffee.com/on the knuckle. Treat us both to a coffee. We are, of course, very grateful for any positivity. And any support of the pod is greatly appreciated. Please send us coffee money rather than death threats. It'll go down a lot nicer. Make sure you share and tell all your friends about the podcast because we are loving doing it. It's a very fun passion project. And I'm excited to do the next 6 episodes and get to talk about the games.
Yeah.
Ciao for now.
Ciao.
Peace.